everyone, my name is Sarah and today we're going to talk about the history of one of my favorite foods, dumplings. Alright, let's get to it. Any dish that is made up of dough pieces can be called a dumpling. Fillings are optional. Types of dumplings include pot stickers, ravioli, empanadas, and piroshki. So these are pot stickers. These are the type of dumplings that you'll find in China and Japan. So like gyoza and gyoza or like jiaozi, I think is how they say it in Chinese. These are ravioli. They're Italian dumplings. I used to eat a lot of these when I was a kid because my family is actually from Italy. They're really, really good. There's like cheese and meat inside and it's a good sauce. Oh, it's delicious. These are called empanadas. These are popular in a lot of Latin American countries, to my knowledge. I ate a lot of these when I was in college because they were very cheap, and there was a lady that sold them near my school. So it's like this doughy, crispy outside, and then, you know, meat, vegetables, spices on the inside. Oh, it's so, so good. This is called piroshki, and I guess it's kind of like the Russian take on the dumpling. To me, it kind of looks like a sandwich to me, but I guess anything can be a dumpling. It also looks kind of similar to Chinese baozi. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it looks a little bit similar. Ooh, of course, mandu, the Korean favorite, one of my favorite Korean foods, always delicious. And then lastly, we have manti. So these are dumplings from Uzbekistan. And they're actually really similar to the ones from Korea, just with some little bit of different ingredients. And you'll notice that the word for manti and the word for mandu is really similar. And that's actually because it's all based on the same word. In Chinese, there's a mantou, which it's another type of dumpling. So dumplings are truly global, and there's all kinds of ways to eat them. There's all kinds of ways to make them, and they're all delicious. So yeah, any dish that is made up of dough pieces can be called a dumpling. So all of the things that I just showed you, all of those are dumplings. Fillings are optional. So I think all of the dumplings that we looked at all have some sort of filling, but apparently that is not a necessary component of a dumpling. You can have a dumpling without any filling. Although, I don't know how tasty it would be, because usually the filling is the best part, but I digress. If you know of a tasty recipe for dumplings that has no filling, make sure to let me know in the comment section below. So types of dumplings include pot stickers, ravioli, empanadas, and piroshki. And I just showed you those here. All right, let's move on to the next sentence. Dumplings are an ancient food with no exact origin. They most likely came about independently in numerous cuisines. Experts agree dumplings were created to feed a lot of people with a small amount of meat. So dumplings are an ancient food. So ancient, that means it's been around for a really, really long time. So for instance, we talk about ancient Greece, ancient Rome. These are societies that existed way back in the day, over 1,000 years ago. So ancient history covers everything from the beginning of recorded history, about 3,500 BC, to about 500 AD. So that's a 4,000 year span, starting over 1,500 years ago. So anything that is over 1,500 years old, you can say that it's ancient. You can also use it kind of as a joke, just like, oh, my teacher is so ancient, but don't actually say that to their face. They won't really like it. Anyway, so ancient, yes, ancient means old. So dumplings are an ancient food, and they've been around for a really, really long time. And they have no exact origin. So an origin is the place where it originally came from. So like the 원산지. So dumplings, as we saw before, there's all different types of dumplings all around the world. And it appears that they most likely came about independently in numerous cuisines. So there's no one place where we can say dumplings came from for certain, because it seems like people started making them in different cultures all at the same time, but without but without communicating with each other. So there's no one guy that invented the dumpling and then it spread around the world. Most likely it was a bunch of people inventing it multiple times in multiple ways. And that's why we have such a diverse and delicious array of different types of dumplings. So to come about independently, like I just said, it appeared on its own without coming from one central guy who invented the recipe for dumplings. In several cuisines. So cuisine, it's like a type of food. So when we talk about food, so food itself, the word food, is the most general that you can get. Anything, pretty much anything that you can eat, all of it is food. But if you talk about cuisine, usually the cuisine, it's the type of food that you can find in a special culture. So for instance, you could say Italian cuisine, Korean cuisine, Asian fusion cuisine. So it's like a subgroup of a type of food. And then if you try one plate of something from that cuisine, that's a dish. So there's lots of different ways to refer to different types of food. So, and lastly, experts agree that dumplings were created to feed a lot of people with a small amount of meat. So as the first sentence says, dumplings actually don't require a filling, but when they do, usually there's some kind of meat that goes inside, right? And as you guys probably know, getting meat in ancient times was super, super difficult because you had to go out and kill the animal yourself and then, store everything. They didn't have refrigerators. It was very messy. And dumplings are a good way to feed people more efficiently. So if you have a lot of people and a little bit of meat, dumplings are a good way to kind of spread the meat around. Apicius, a collection of Roman recipes, is credited for having the world's first recipes for dumplings. One recipe from the text is for boiled dumplings using pheasant meat. So, as we said before, dumplings don't have one exact origin. No one guy invented dumplings. However, the first recorded recipe that we have for dumplings comes from the Roman cookbook called Apicius. And so the Roman cookbook is credited, or it takes credit, or it's known for having the world's first recipes for dumplings. So in that cookbook, there were recipes for boiled dumplings that used pheasant meat. So boiling means when you heat something up in water, and the water is over 100 degrees Celsius, it starts to get bubbles in it, right? So we call that boiling water. And we can use boiling water to cook all different types of food, including dumplings. And so usually, I think in Korea, there's like bulgogi or like kimchi or kind of those sort of things that would go in the dumplings. But apparently in ancient Rome, they used to eat pheasants. Who knew? As for filled dumplings, the Chinese have been making them for more than 1,800 years. Wow, that's super old. A man named Zhang Zhongjing from the Han Dynasty is often credited for inventing Chinese stuffed dumplings. So I actually used to live in China, and I love Chinese dumplings. I miss them a lot, actually. They have like this thick skin, and they're just so flavorful and amazing. So I can thank this guy named Zhang Zhongjing for inventing or creating for the first time Chinese filled dumplings during the Han Dynasty. So that's over 1,800 years ago. That's crazy. So the recipe for dumplings found in this cookbook, it apparently was not a filled dumpling, but the dumplings that we know and love and we eat all the time in Korea are potentially related to this recipe created by this gentleman, Zhang Zhongjing. So why did he make this recipe in the first place? After noticing his neighbors were suffering from frostbite, Zhang boiled mutton, chili, and herbs wrapped in scraps of dough. He handed them out with the hope of curing his neighbors. So Zhang Zhongjing, he would come up one day and magically think up the recipe for dumplings. There was actually a reason. So according to this story, Zhang Zhongjing noticed that the people living next door to him, or his neighbors, were suffering from frostbite. So frostbite is when it's really, really cold outside and your flesh literally begins to freeze, and it's extremely painful, and it can be very dangerous because if your flesh freezes, it can fall off, which obviously, you know, causes problems. It can make you really sick, and you know, back then they didn't have heat inside. They had fire, but yeah, it was pretty difficult to get warm while you were inside. So Jong had to think fast, and he came up with a recipe for boiled mutton, which is lamb, chili, and herbs, and he wrapped it with straps of dough. And he gave it to them with the hope, or hoping that, it would cure his neighbors. All right, wow. So that was a very educational and also quick video for this week. I'm really hungry, so I'm gonna go. But if you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you all again next time. Alrighty, see you. Bye.